Good afternoon, everyone. We can start with what we have right here, how it looks like. And as you can see, hopefully on the stream, is that we are flickering a lot. And then at some point, things are removed, deleted, I'm not sure. And then finally, at some point, oh, interesting. Yeah, it's just kind of messed up, really. And you can also see that the UI stays on. When I played this before off stream, it hit an assert, or it was writing to a null pointer or something, and it crashed. So there's definitely something very wrong with this, and that's what we will be trying to fix today. I can't make it crash for some reason. So yeah, off stream, I was working on a couple of strategies. What I realized was that I have my heap manager, and actually I want to open heap manager C. And when we are pushing, we are grabbing a slot, and then based on the free slots, we are, grabbing a free slot, or we are creating a new slot. And I realized I don't want to really have to deal with this in a multi-threaded application. So what I did instead is in my game run, after I have ran all of the prefab functions, all the entity functions, I do somewhere. Interesting. I put it after the mutex swap. I guess that does make sense. So yeah, I just have this task, and I do all of the tasks until the end. And you might be asking, what is this task pop? Because what we had before was we were having thread task, push and pop. Well, I realized that there's some tasks that I want to do multi-threaded, but other tasks I want to do single-threaded, just because it's at least it's beyond my capability at the moment to really manage that in a satisfactory way. And to make it easier for myself, things like spawning and destroying entities or prefabs, I just kind of don't want to do that multi-threaded. I can queue them in the multi-threaded, in the threads. I can queue creation and destruction, but I don't want to actually do it on the thread as it's happening. So what I do instead now is I'm having thread task, but then I have also task. And task is just the single threaded version of thread task. So hopefully that makes sense. Now you might have seen I still have this bug that I was having last time. And it's really kind of hairy because I'm not really sure what's going on. What I'm pretty sure is happening is I am pushing tasks to the OpenGL functions. So I'm pushing this one specifically. And that takes it takes a little while to finish, especially because I am generating vertices for this. Or actually vertexes, because I'm generating UVs and everything, right? And then I have to create the actual OpenGL. I have to create the memory for the vertexes, and I have to upload them, and all of that takes a bunch of time. That's why, if you notice here in the output, you can see what I'm clicking, and it takes like a full second or two to spawn all of the meteoroids, because I'm spawning like 8,000 of them. And at the very end here, I'm having this atomic exchange mesh is ready. And I was thinking, if this is actually a good way to do it. So what I was thinking about is, okay, I have this Boolean essentially in the mesh. To say if it's ready or not, but it still seems like it doesn't really work very well. And also I actually don't super like having a volatile on this B32. So I was thinking of something different. What I was thinking about doing today is I will, in my game thread, or in my graphics thread, I mean, I will push a task back to the game, to the single-threaded loop here. And then at the end of the frame, after we have already swapped the memory, then we can read the new graphics mesh pointers that the OpenGL thread has sent to us, and we assign them correctly in the OpenGL graphics thread here, in the struct, not this one actually, in here. So this void star, we send a request to create it with this pointer, and once it's created, we send another task back with both this pointer and this pointer, and then all the game thread has to do is assign that pointer here, and then everything else should be working fine. So I hope that's going to fix the issue with this blinking, because I was trying to debug it, and it just seems like the memory is just messed up. That sometimes randomly, even if this is set, even if this returns true, the graphics mesh might not be there, or the graphics mesh is there, but the subcomponents, the parameters in the struct, they might be not there, or they might be invalid. So definitely something is going on, and I figured probably it's something to do with this ready. This ready here. That something is actually not ready. All the things that are set here don't seem to be actually happening before this ready, which is strange to me, because this interlocked exchange should work as a memory barrier. This function generates a full memory barrier to ensure that memory operations are completed in order. So the way I understand that is that anything that is called before this function call has to happen before it, and anything that happens after has to happen after. That's why I wanted to use this ready flag. but something is not working and I cannot figure out why. So we will try the other way with having the thread, the main thread task in a single threaded way, just assigning the pointers at the end of the frame. And there could be some concerns about performance, but honestly, I don't expect there's going to be more than a few dozen, maybe tops 100 things that need to be loaded at the same time. And I'm pretty confident that can happen within a frame, possibly 2 or 3, definitely not, 1 or 2 seconds like it's doing right now with my, when I'm spawning 8,000 right there. And another thing I wanted to do also is in my OpenGL here. No, actually, no. In the thread here. This is my OpenGL or graphics thread. And again, I am just doing this until all of the jobs are done. And because I'm pushing 8,000 jobs at the same time, that's why it's kind of halting here for a second. So I was thinking maybe we give this a timeout so that, we can do this up to, the frame limit, and then we abandon and come back later, just so that we don't have that initial huge spike. So yeah, that's what I will be working on. So I guess no point in avoiding it anymore. Let's just do it. So what do I want to do? So here is where add primitive, right? We have the mesh out. And the mesh itself is pushed here. No. No, it's not pushed here. It's already created when I'm pushing this task. So I think all I really need to do let's remove this altogether. Also, right now, the graphics thread is using this type of thread task. But because I can only have one, or I think I can have multiple if I really want, but I would rather just keep it to one thread doing all of the graphics, including, or, it's hard to say. Maybe I have like a worker thread for the graphics to generate meshes. But the more indirections I'm adding to the memory, the more annoying it gets to keep everything in sync. So I was thinking maybe I should put the graphics thread to have the same task system like the single-threaded game task system. But I don't know. I guess we will get there if we get there. And I think this needs to be a new function. No. Result. I see. That's it, really. So I would say this should be safe now because the graphics mesh is updated when all of the threads are sleeping. So it's updated in this loop that should be thread safe. But of course we need to call it. So yeah, task push game queue. No function. Or what was it again? Update. We need to add this to the functions in entity. I guess we need to do the same thing here. So task push. What is this error? We don't care about it being ready. We're updating the physics regardless, right? Actually, we are not. Well, I might need to rewrite this anyway, because different types might need the different types of physics, but we will get to that eventually. So entity mesh was null pointer. Mm-hmm. But that's fine. So was where did we write this before in game? It's still blinking. Zero. How is it zero? Okay, let's go to game first. we are having an account here, 8001, which is what I would expect because I'm spawning 8,000 meteoroids, and then the one is the player. And then we go here. And we can see I0, J0. This should be the player. There's a mesh. It looks correct. 960 though. That's a meteoroid. Now I can actually look at, is it PF? Yeah, meteoroid 0. Because I added the names to these to be better able to debug it. Now I'm still surprised that the player is not the first one. These are all valid, I think. In the same rough address space. Now they are sort of randomly assigned. And it might be worth to sort them at some point based on their addresses. But yeah, at the end of that, I would expect all of them to be drawn. Oh. I couldn't even start the game there. Now these ones are old. I kind of want to replace them. What actually happened here? we have a function. I don't know what function this is. It looks like this is the correct one. So we called it, and then what happened? All I'm trying to do here, it has to be the one above the task. I don't know. I don't get it. Okay. Let's wait until everything is gone. It's very random when it happens. Okay. That's not a null pointer. I don't think I'm using this component anymore. Never mind. They are all set. What is going on here? What? Okay, now I'm really confused. -G00. I'm so confused. I'm pressing F10. Is it? It's different threads. Aha. Let's just solo this thread then. Oh, they're all there. And all in order, too. So we get to here. We have count equals 0 for some reason. So there can only be one explanation for me. And that is, there's something wrong here. Because here, 179, and then the next 2000, and the next it's 0. And then 0, 1400, 0, 0, 1400, 300, 4000. I'm actually... Okay. So we halt the graphics thread. We look at where are you currently at. We calculate the next index that we want to draw to, which is the current +1 mod the number of arrays that we have. If the graphics is currently using that index, we do the same thing. So that we get a different index. We see that the latest one is the one we're currently on. And the one we want to use is the one we just calculated, which is 2, because graphics is using 1 at the moment. And then we release task, synchronization, and I might do this clear. Right after. Huh? What is going on? I can keep that here, but I shouldn't need to do atomic read. So we grab the prefab array and UI array and we clear them immediately. Because these are old. And then we do the synchronization, blah, blah, blah. Does that change anything? I wouldn't expect it to. This looks either corrupted or unaligned or something. It looks like this was supposed to be written here and then this below it. If you see what I mean. And you can see this one looks similar to this top. That is weird. I definitely messed up somewhere. I don't know how to debug this. What could possibly be messing with the memory that causes this effect? All of this is garbage. This is correct. And this looks fine. But this is garbage. $20K. Where is this in memory? It's just here. I have an idea. Thank you. I have an idea. If I do this, is it going to tell me when the program is trying to write into some uninitialized memory? Interesting. So that actually seems better. Barely. It's different. What am I building and why? I am building a game engine in C, and the reason why is because I'm what do you say? Interested in it. I find the technology behind game engines to be very interesting. I think it's fun, and I think it's very useful because the more I get into it, the more my abilities to make other programs also evolve. So what is location 0 here? The graphics mesh. So somehow we pushed a mesh draw with a graphics mesh 0. But it can't be 0. Because if you remember, we check if it's null pointer before we push it. So something has zeroed this out. Except the valid is still true. Yeah, I'm having a major issue now with multithreading because I added one step, which is I'm pushing these mesh draw. This is basically a struct that is requesting something to be drawn. So it's pushing the position before and after, the previous position and the current position, so that we can interpolate in between them. And then this void graphics mesh, which is a pointer to all of the OpenGL stuff that OpenGL needs, like the buffer IDs and stuff like this, and textures. But for some reason, when I do this in my thread, even though I say the graphics mesh cannot be null pointer, it has to be not null pointer, I come into the game, I come into the graphics thread, and suddenly the mesh is null pointer. And so I have some kind of memory issue. and I don't know where. Because it's not very consistent. Like I can see that things are flashing, but I can't tell when it's going to crash or not. Have I ever built a game engine in the past? I have had toy engines where I read 3D objects and I animate. I use animations and things like this. But I never built a fully functioning multi-threaded game engine before. Have I tried compiling with the address sanitizer? No. How do I do that in Clang? Is it this fsanitize address use after return? Just fsanitize address. Are you sure? It doesn't tell me that. Well, we can try. Because I was struggling this for like half a week now, and I'm getting a bit annoyed. I'm even considering to like revert back to an earlier version if I can't fix it this week. Where are my flags here? No, it's not fsanitize address. I'm not using... Huh? I'm not using CMake. It's an equal. Yeah. Yeah, that was all. Code execution cannot proceed because Clang, address sanitizer dynamic was not found. Reinstalling the program may fix this problem. I see. So I don't know. What version I'm on. Clang version 20.1. Does it say what version I need? No. '23. Can I just install it on top? Clang 18. What? Your Clang version is 19.1. So I am on a later version than you. Clang RT. Hold on. Runtime address sanitizer dynamic x86 64. DLL was not found. This is MSVC. Okay. It might be because I compile with MD instead of MT. But is everything okay?
I was giving her drink. Fell down.
Can I help you?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I need to help out. All right, I'm back. Sorry. Quick question. How did I get really strong in C or C++? I'm a fresher trying to get into embedded, still jobless. What 2-3 projects would you recommend I focus on? Well, I don't know if I can give you a lot of tips there because I'm also jobless. So if you have any tips, let me know. Now, that aside, like I never went to university for programming, and I just learned on my own, searching things on the internet, watching videos. So I don't know, honestly. Like I would say that the things that I would recommend you focus on is like pick a project that is achievable, but that you know that you will not give up on. So it might, like, let's say you estimate it to take 2 weeks. Even if it takes 2 months, you will still finish it. Like, you will not give up after 1 month. So that's number one. People always estimate way lower than what it actually ends up taking. But in regards to what you should focus on, like, pick the thing that interests you, honestly. Like, I like games, so I picked the game. You could make a website. You could pick, like, this is also like for my website. So like some C code that I can run on my website. So that's part of the reason. Like I wanted it to run on using Emscripten and Windows and Linux. So that's why I picked this project. But you can do anything. Like if you like making a server and client system, then you can do that. And I made that as well because I was curious, like how do I actually communicate between two programs over the internet? So like I made a very simple socket initialization and sending data back and forth and parsing JSON and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope that helps. Now, in regards to finding a job, I can't really help you because I'm also looking for one. Yeah. I don't know what I need for Clang ASUN. Yeah, I would say also, like, I have some not memory gaps. I have some knowledge gaps simply because I never went through a formal process of learning software development. So, like, I understand embedded as in something running on the system, but I couldn't tell you what it means specifically for, you know, an embedded system. Like, it's something built in. So I wouldn't be able to tell you much about that. So yeah, let's look at my install. I think it's on the A drive. No, I completely forgot. Is it on C? LLVM. It should be, oh, Tkap wrote LLVM lib clang 20 lib Windows, and right there it is. It's right here. x86 64 DLL. So why is it not finding it? Is it RemedyBG that is not finding it? You're planning on focus on system level projects like implementing malloc, file systems, etc. One doubt, how did I reduce dependency on AI while learning? Well, I am... Like, it's a weird question for me because I have been learning programming for the past like 6 years. So, well, I've been learning programming overall for maybe 15 years. But C and C++ specifically for maybe 6 years. So like I just never had access to AI. And by the time it came about, I was already good enough at writing code that I can tell when the AI is bullshitting. So I know when it's useful and when it's not. Yeah, let's do what Tkap said. So we just paste in the DLL right here next to the exa. I think there's some way, like probably I can add it to my global paths or something, but this should work for now. And you see it does. Now it doesn't tell me anything differently. It's running slower, but the LLVM page did say that it could do that. But yeah, what I wanted to say. The best thing that I could recommend you do is probably learn how to find documentation and how to read it. Like if I'm using if I'm on Windows and I want to use these functions, like you wouldn't know where to find this if you've never done programming before. So like learn how do you find this. Usually it's very simple. On Windows you'd go Win32 multi-threading or something, and then they have a page and you can read this and they have examples. And then they say, oh, use this function called create thread, and then later wait for multiple objects. And then you do Win32, wait for multiple objects. What is this? And they have another page and you can read that. And they also have some remarks that you should read, honestly, because they often explain in more detail what is going on. And then you use it, and then you learn how to use a debugger to step through and see what's going on. And at that point is when I would maybe go to AI and like tell me how to do this, because then you already have an idea of how things are working. You know how to double check the things that it's telling you, and then you can use it more effectively. Now, I've never really generated code and copy pasted it without double checking it. That's another thing. Like you can use AI to just like generate you some code for something you have never done before. But I would still, write it yourself, go through it and understand every line. Don't just copy and paste, because then you're doing nothing. You're learning nothing. Tkap, if it doesn't crash, then I'm not doing anything messed up memory-wise. Yeah, so I'm not doing anything super messed up. I think what happened is just something about my memory access is wrong, because I'm using a lot of strides. And I've also started to use... I think this is honestly, it could be the reason for the issue. Where is it? Heap manager, maybe. So I've started to use these stride align up because I wanted to make them thread safe. But that's an issue, because then if I allocate it here with the size of the struct and not with the aligned size, then I'm gonna overflow the memory. But the memory is still valid because I allocated an entire block, and then I do like sub allocations using my arena allocator within that. So then it jumps out of the scope of the struct that I have assigned it, and it writes data into like a different thread, a different arena, or a different like allocation in the arena. So I think I'm doing something like that, and I don't think the adder sanitizer is gonna catch that, because I'm not doing anything weird. Like technically I'm doing exactly what I wrote, which is the worst thing when the computer is doing exactly what you asked it for, not what you intended to ask. Why C and not C++? Well, I was using C++ for a long time, but I realized that I'm not actually using very much of the C++ exclusive features. And so I wanted to do a C project for the longest time to see how it feels like to just use C and not use any of the C++ stuff. And the only thing I'm really that's really bothering me is having to type def my structs all the time, or having to like write them in like 3 places, because I have my definitions here. These things have to exist for all the entire program. Like the entire program needs to know about them. So I need to type def them here. But then when I define them in the header file, I have to like define them again and I have to define them differently from another type of struct that, like here, where I have typedef, right? So that's a little bit annoying. And another thing that's annoying is that I can't have multiple definitions for functions. So I can't have, you know, i32 arg1, i32 arg2, etc. with the same name. I have to make another function definition for that. But like honestly, that's the only things that I'm that are annoying me. And everything else I'm not really missing. Now, I was never really deep into the C++ isms in general. So I think that's completely logical for me to just be happy with what C offers, because I was mostly using the C stuff anyway. But another benefit is that everything is just running faster. So like, I'm not talking about the code necessarily, but the language server is running way faster. If I do something like that, you see this popping up immediately, and that's really cool. If I go to main here and I do the same, you see that took like 2 seconds, but the reason why is because this scope is including all of the things, including Windows and OpenGL and all of these things that it needs to like know in the scope. And that's why it's taking so long. But in the game, the same thing, it's like immediately. And that's still in VS Code. It's not even the fastest, well, I guess it's Clang actually. So like Clang is not necessarily built for speed, but it's still this fast in the context of my game, simply because I'm limiting the scope and all of this code. It's like a couple of thousand lines at this point, but it's like immediate. And the thing I noticed in C++ usually, even if you're having this limited scope in here, it still takes, an extra half a second. So, that's a benefit for me. Same thing with building. Now I'm building the entire game every time, but you could imagine that I finish the engine sort of, and then I can have the game as a separate DLL or something like this, and I'll just build that. And then the game is going to be built super quickly, compared to like now when I'm doing the entire engine. Now maybe I messed something up here. Multi-threading API is more annoying in C than C++ in your opinion? Well, maybe. I feel like the way I'm doing multi-threading, it's the same, mostly. So again, I was watching this guy. You've probably seen him if you follow programming content online. Nathan Biggs is his name. Bags. Nathan Bags. So he is doing a project as well, just similar to mine, I guess. Like he's building something from scratch, or well, he's programming on stream, right? But he's using a lot of libraries. Now, if you look at his code, I'm sorry, but I just don't understand it. So like 90% of my code is like C99. And he's up to like C++ 26, I guess. And he has all this code that like, it's just giving me a headache to try to understand it. He is like fully sold on the open-oriented things and like using every feature of C++, the latest and greatest every time. And like, I respect that he can keep all of that knowledge about it. But I don't understand a single thing that he writes. So I think that he is having very good content. I love his content about hacking that he has, and I watched them all on my other channel. So yeah, this one. But like whenever I watch his stream, like I have it on the background, and like sometimes I'm looking over and I see this const auto get whatever, and like I couldn't program like this. This is not fun for me. So that's why I'm doing C, because even when I was using C++, I was never doing anything like that. Yeah, Tkap. If you allocate 1 GB, but you know that you're currently using only 1 megabyte, you can poison the 1 GB, unpoison the 1 megabyte, and now your sanitizer will trigger if I write the poison area. That makes sense, but the issue is that I'm actually using it. So if we go to main here, I have my allocate memory function, and I have all of my structs, and I calculate the size of them, and then I have, this is static arena and then scratch arena. And the difference is that this lives for the entirety of the program lifetime. So whenever we need to allocate something to make a library work, then we just push it to here, and that includes arrays, right? So in game here, I might have an array of tasks. Or this heap is having the stride, and I just have a void star data. And then I say, well, I calculate the stride, I calculate how many slots I need, and then I allocate that dynamically. And this static size is just like, you know, if I allocate 10 megabytes, but I run out of memory, then I just increase it. And I increased it now to 200 because I'm trying to like push my program and generate like 8,000 meteoroids that are all unique, which I probably wouldn't do otherwise. But like I'm just trying to push and see where their limits are. And then similarly for scratch size, I might have a bunch of textures that I'm loading, and then I'm decompressing them and putting them on the graphics card, and then I free this. So like this goes down to 0 again. But yeah, I think I just need to like go over how my allocation memory works and see if that's the issue, because I don't think I can use an address sanitizer for what I'm doing, because all of the memory I'm allocating, I'm actually using. It's not like I can just poison the extra memory. You saw a short recently, and dude had auto as his function returns for his function declarations. What the fuck? And I don't know what this function returns, but the compiler does. Yeah, like at that point, I just feel like you're losing control of your program. Like maybe I lost control of my program when I introduced this multi-threading thing. But at least I can try to do something about it. I think it's a different type of problem, because I can still like step through the code and like know everything that's going on. The only thing I don't understand is why some of the memory is being overwritten by some other thread, which I'm trying to debug right now. But you would have the same problem in his type of application, unless I guess maybe he is doing malloc on everything. But then you have a separate problem with memory leaks. So I'm specifically doing this to avoid memory leaks. Yeah, let's go through allocate memory and see if there's something really stupid that we're doing. So size of graphics. This is well known. The thing I made to stop memory leaks is memory leaking. Yeah, I don't know. It's just I can understand that people use C++, and I can understand also that they prefer it. I have no issue with people who use something with a good reason, but I feel like sometimes people just get like sold on the idea of C++, but then it doesn't actually help them when making a program. Now, if it does help you, then like I'm happy for you. I never really liked it, so you know that's just my preference. So all of this is constant. I have some buffer count. You're not sure what the problem is? Oh. Sorry, I think I was boosting my microphone a little bit too much. You're not sure what the problem is, why I couldn't poison it. Presumably, I'm allocating 200 megabytes. That's true. And then I can poison them right after I allocate them. And then whenever I need another 20 megabytes, I unpoison the 20 megabytes. That's exactly how my allocator works, actually. But what I mean is, I think I need something like this. Let's say I have my array of bytes. And these represent, 10 megabytes. Each 0 is 10 megabytes, right? So I allocate them all, and they're all poisoned. Then I say, I'm pushing this on the arena. So I'm creating this and this unpoisoned. And then I do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And now everything is unpoisoned. Now there might still be like some extra memory after. But the problem is, I think what's happening is that here, this part is overflowing into here and overwriting some memory there. So like, even though these are poisoned, it doesn't matter because I am writing into unpoisoned memory already, because most of this is like allocated at boot. Now I do have the scratch memory, but the scratch memory is not what's being having an issue. So does that make sense? Do I have debug versions of my custom allocator? In school, we had to make ours with pad bytes and initialize them with magic numbers like A, B, C for testing. So I have a very simple allocator, almost the simplest one that you can have. So it's not really about debugging like that. Maybe I should make something more robust, right? But here's my arena allocator. I just say, we take an arena, we take a size, we take used plus size. Well, I'm asserting here. never mind. We're taking the pointer to the currently used data, and then we increase the block count and we get the block. So the block has the destination and size. And then we just increase use, and that's it. That's the entire code for the allocator. That's it. It's just a linear allocator. And every time I'm pushing something, it adds to this heap. And that, of course, means that it's very difficult to remove something. But that's why I'm having two arenas, one statically and one for temporary. And then in the third case, when I need to do something more involved, like I need to create entities and delete them, and then I'm having holes, well, that's why I have something different, which is this heap manager. And this heap manager makes sure that we have the same number, like every block here is the same size. So then I can just like delete the entire thing and everything is like safe. And if I align it up to be, it should be here actually. If I align this to 127 bytes, or I could probably get away with 64, but if I align it up to like this boundary, then it should be thread safe as well. I can remove it or write to it, thread safe. Now, I still need to have the free slot count and active count. Those needs to be managed. And that's why I kind of like went back and said, well, maybe when I create and destroy slots, I will do that single threaded at the very end of the frame. And I do that with this like task function. So all the threads can push a task to this queue and tell the main thread to create or delete entities, for example. And it does that single threaded. But all of the physics update and all of the heavy calculations that need to happen, they can still be multi-threaded. So that's kind of my compromise. Tkap, you could verify if that's a problem when you ask for 10 megabytes, actually grab 20 megabytes, unpoison the 10 megabytes, keep the extra 10 megabyte poisoned. That way, if you read right into that extra space, I will crash. When I ask for 10 megabytes, actually grab 20. Unpoison the 10 megabytes. But what you're talking about, like, again, if I'm wrong, correct me. But like, it really seems like you're talking about if I am writing into uninitialized memory, but all of my memory is initialized. Like what I'm talking about here that's happening is that I have my game header here, and I have, I don't know, I have my heap manager for entity, prefab, UI, meshes, lights, and they all go into the static arena. So you are talking about poisoning the unused bytes, but I am writing into the used bytes because maybe entity is before prefab, and then entity is writing into prefab because I do some weird calculation where the heap manager is assuming the stride is aligned up. here, that the stride is aligned up. But when I actually allocated it in somewhere, I wasn't using the aligned size. I'm just using the size of the struct. So I said the issue is worker threads are writing to memory when they weren't assigned. Well, the issue is everything was working perfectly. And then I added this code. If the mesh exists and if the mesh is having a graphics mesh assigned, then we are writing to this mesh draw array. And I wrote a different push here. So this heap array, this is a little bit different from the heap manager, because the heap manager can push a bunch of things and delete something in the middle. And then the next time I'm pushing, I write into the empty slots first. This heap array doesn't do that. All it can do is push, and then when I'm done with it, I pop the entire thing and start over. Because I want to basically have an array of mesh draw calls up here. So I get the count of like the number of prefabs I want to draw. No, that's still the game. Here it is. Draw. UI is the same. So like I get the like mesh draw array for UI. How many are active? And there's no empty slots here, as you can see. So I just get this count and then I just draw them out. And these are having position data and things like this that I can interpolate in between, and then I can make a transform matrix, and then I can push that onto the graphics card and I can draw it. And that's what you're seeing. Here, right? So that's what you're seeing. All of these are prefabs in the game state that exist in one place. And then whenever I'm done with the physics updates, I look, do they have a graphics mesh assigned? Because the graphics mesh is having all of the OpenGL states. And if it does, then I copy the position, rotation, whatever. I calculate the lights. I copy that into the mesh draw struct, and then I give that to the graphics thread. Now, for some reason, it seems like randomly this count, you see it's 6,000. That makes sense to me because essentially I'm having 8,000 minus the ones that I cannot see because they're off screen, and I called them because of that. But the next frame that I try to draw, well, 8,000, that's more than it should be, I think. But now it's 4,000. So you can see it's jumping around. And as things progress, this is getting smaller. So like one of them will be after a few seconds. I don't know how to trigger it. It's another issue. But at some point, yeah, you see this is 3,000 now. And what I was having before, it was down to like 0. Yes. So Tkap, when I write into like this, what I think might be happening now, I don't know that this is the case. If I am writing physics into the prefab manager, maybe I'm doing something wrong when I calculate the offset, and then I actually go into the mesh draw or something. Not this one actually, but these ones here. Now the order in this state struct doesn't matter because these are all having void data anyway, and that data goes to these arenas, and these are also pointers. And you can see that I have separated them into state, static, and scratch. This is the arena for like this state struct itself. Yeah, there's nothing happening in scratch arena. Everything is happening in static arena. So what I tried is, aside from enabling this sanitize address, I tried to do a calloc here for graphics, and that seemed to help. And the only reason why it would help is if something is going on with my reading and writing of the state. And when I play this, yeah, now you can see like it's already down to like 0 rates. 0. How is it 0? Because when I'm looking here in the function that is actually writing these, I go here. All of them are having graphics meshes assigned. So like something is going on with the memory. So it's either this mutex lock, because what's happening is that the graphics thread is running way faster than the game. You can see here in the output, I have limited my game thread to run at 33 milliseconds, so 30 updates per second, even though it only takes like 0.01 or whatever. But the graphics thread is only limited by the VSync, so it can go like 144, I think, on this monitor. And that makes the OpenGL thread run, 4 or 5 times every time I'm having an update. And that's what I think is happening, that now I'm only streaming at 30, so like it will be harder for you to see what's going on. But what I feel is happening is that it's reading the memory wrong. So it's because in here, game update, no, game run. I get the graphics index, and then later I clear the entire like prefab array or whatever. And what I think is happening is that in the middle of this clearing, if this clearing is happening at the same time as it's trying to draw, there could be some memory that is being wrong. And so is the game, maybe that's a better thing to start with. Because in here, I'm I'm doing also a mutex, and then I'm reading the latest. And then I'm copying that in their exchange, not anything else. I guess we can do a like printf here. Do I have any advice or fundamentals on dynamic arrays in C? You have been struggling with them. Like I could spend the next 30 minutes going over different strategies, but I'm not going to do that. I think it's too wide of a topic to say anything in particular. But what I would say is learn how to use arenas. So Ryan Lurie, arenas. It's funny because I actually never read this and I was making my own. And I think I was like just reinventing the same thing that he was writing about. But this is a very popular blog post about using arenas. And if you understand how to use arenas, then I would say that you understand how to do dynamic arrays in C. So the simplest thing that I could say is that if you have an array of I32s, let's say, then you can give it a size. So you need to have, you know, your size here equals like size of I32 times the count, right? And then you just do another like push to array. And then what this push is doing, it checks if it goes out of bounds. And if it ever is too large, then you just do a mem copy of array to new array. And what is new array? It's just the size times 2. And now you have dynamic allocation for very little overhead. So like there's some strategies like that, but obviously when you get more and more into it, if you want to have different sizes of the things inside, or you want to like be able to delete things in the middle, then it gets more like involved. So GTA 6 trailer 3 just dropped. I never watched trailers, so I hope you enjoy that. What did you send me? Imgur. No, I don't want to consent to 23 vendors with legitimate interest in my content performance. What the hell? Look at this. 167 vendors. These are our official partners. 128 vendors. Are they even the same? I don't know. How does legitimate interest work? Aha, okay. So when they say legitimate interest, they mean on the basis of their legitimate interest. Like, what the fuck? Confirm choices. Okay. Wish you could understand or write C++. Me too, man. Well, I am on this side of the graph. So I am trying to write A, and I think, again, like I'm repeating myself, but I think I'm writing something in B. Now, it could be that the B that is being overwritten unexpectedly, it might just be my mem set or mem copy. In game. Mem set. No? Or zero mem? Where are you? Heap array clear, which is just a wrapper around memset. So it could be that this is the thing that is messing it up, because the graphics just happen to grab the index that is being currently cleared in the while it's being cleared. But it's hard to say that, because in here it looks like it's garbage. It looks like it's like unaligned writes of some random pointers. Anyway, let's build this and look at what we are printing. Now you can see here we're reading the same one, and then the same two, and then the same two again. That doesn't seem right. It might have been interrupted or something because I was like closing it. But this is, oh, okay. Here's something. It reads one. Now, can I guarantee that this was printed? I can't, right? So this print here, it's calling this print function. This is a wrapper around printf or print A, and print A is a wrapper between around output debug string and printf. And I'm almost certain this is a how do you say? This is not a function that blocks the execution until it's finished. This is like a request to Windows to, whenever it feels comfortable, print this in, the output window. So the fact that this one is after this print, it's not something you can rely on. This one is most likely just from here, from before. And same with the 0. But we are reading, like, what I wanted to verify is that we're drawing multiple times, but we are not incrementing this unexpectedly. What you were saying is go from being on the left side of the image to being on the right side. Oh, I see what you're doing. Hey, that's actually pretty smart. Okay. I could do that. So how do I poison the memory? Not Clangd, just Clang. ASUN poison memory region. Manual poisoning. Google. Yeah, it's just a Clang thing. Okay. So, I don't know, let's wrap it or something. We're having debug, right? No CPU debug. And when it is debugging, and unpoisoned memory. I need to include sanitizer as sun interface. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. I could do that. At least we're trying it out. So in main here, is main where I have my allocator? Arena H. Do I even have Arena C? I don't think so. So I'm going to say if def TFL or if ndef no CPU debug. What was it? Okay. Give repo you're in debugging mode and you're invested. You want to find it? Well, you can find it on my webpage, which I'm posting everywhere. So you go here and you can go to GitLab and you can find it on my personal projects, Masternout. Now, if you want to actually build this, what you also need is TFL tools. It will download it automatically, but you need to have the experimental branch, and that's something that you need to set manually. So you go, when you download it, you git pull the, GitLab, right? After that, you go into, what is it called? Dependencies, TFL tools. And then here, you can see the branch needs to be experimental. So you switch to that and you pull again, I think. And that should be everything that you need to do. when I enable the sanitizer, this gets defined for you in case you don't want to define your own thing on top. Sanitize address. Aha. No, I kind of, I see what you mean. Like that might actually be nicer because I probably don't want to run with the sanitizer on all the time. That is actually a good shout. Thank you. You guys are being so helpful today. So we just throw this in here. Where was I? In main, right? If sanitize address, then we do size times equals, I don't know what makes sense, 2. And then we do poison memory. I need to do it twice. Yep. Because before I want to double the size. And then later I want to do poison memory. Pointer and size. Test plus size and size a half. Right, because I doubled the size. So I actually need let's put this in its own little box. Size a half. And then we use this. You see how slow this is in the main context? Unused variable. It's literally here, dude. Okay. So now this is not running. So I need to enable it. I guess I do that with the sanitize address. Did I do it right? I have a feeling I didn't do it right. Yeah, it's skipping it. Oh, I'm dumb. I'm sorry. I do this if define sanitize address, but the address is in here. So can I detect when I set the thing. I guess not. Now it should work. Syntax of the command is incorrect. But why? Oh, I need to do sets. Yeah. Syntax is incorrect. Batch sucks. Yeah, I agree. Is it the space between the one and parentheses? You might be right. Thank you, Windows, for such an amazing scripting language. All right. Now we should hit this. We did not. Is there a way in RemedyBG to see the things? Because this is definitely set in the build. And if this is defined, we should include this and define these. Any reason for using batch and not PowerShell? Well, I just don't know how to use PowerShell. So that's the only reason, really. Also, hello, Tony. Like, this is fine as long as all you're doing is, setting a couple of flags, debug or not, and then you build. But then I started to, include some, using Tracy, and then we need to compile it if it doesn't exist. I need to download some dependencies. I might GLEW specifically for Windows. I have to unzip because compiling that yourself is like a whole hairy business. So that's why it like sort of, grows and grows into something more and more unmanageable. But I feel like I am at the limits of what I need from batch as a build script, right? So I'm not too worried about it. Maybe I will swap to like Python or something one day. Where's the type state defined? It's in game.h. And if you really can't find it, like it should be the first thing in the main entry. So we are having win main here if you're on Windows. So one of the first thing I do is I call, here it is. The first thing I do is create the state pointer, and you should be able to like go to the definition somehow. That's exactly what you did. Ditch bat and now build with Python. Yeah, I've seen people talk about that being a better system in general. Like, of course, I don't like having Python as a dependency, but the good thing about Python is that, again, it's interpreted, right? I don't think Python compiles to bytecode unless you really want it to. It's interpreted, right? So you can run it almost anywhere. And Python is so popular. So you don't need to have one version for building on Windows and another on Linux. And what actually have 4 builds right now without Linux, because I have, it is with Linux, because I have Emscripten bats and Emscripten H, and then I have Win32 bats and Emscripten. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Like this is also getting kind of annoying because this one is completely out of, it's not updated properly. So whenever I update this is not, I have to write the same thing for bash if I want to support that. For Emscripten and for Linux in the future and for Win32. So, you know, maybe I will just switch eventually. But I think that maybe once I finished the engine. So why are we not running this? I don't understand. So we are having the sanitize address, right? Let's just do something like this. Because that was the, no, it wasn't. This is Emscripten. Here. Yes, that is the correct thing. So let's just see if the sanitize macro is actually defined. Yeah, you can also do that. You know, there's many ways to skin a cat, as we say in Sweden. So this is definitely, so why is this defined and this is not defined? Something about, I think you were incorrect, Tkap. I think you lied to me. Define. Macros provided for convenience. It says if defined. It doesn't say define anywhere here. Could it be in here? Doesn't look like it. Works for you. It works on my computer. All right. It doesn't really matter. We can just use my macro. That's fine. Oh. Arena out of memory. Yes. Because I'm doubling everything. Now, I could increase the memory. I don't actually want to do that because I'm already kind of pushing it a little bit. But what I can do is I can make this smaller. 4096. Buffer count, maybe not 20K. 10K. $16K. Huh? And of course, in the game, we only really need a couple thousand. We don't need 8,000 specifically. Arena out of memory. Which arena? Yeah, static. The static size. Oh. That's interesting. That's a local variable. How is that unable to read? What? Is that a setting or a new version? This is cute. No, 0.12. I think it's pretty old. Maybe a year or two. You can enable bitfield, and then you can play around with, setting it like this, and you can change these things as well. Maybe, I mostly use it for, if I have a value that is like this and I want to shift it up like that, I can see what it's supposed to look like, something like that. I like to use it. It's very nice. How is this 18C? I feel like the more I'm working on this project after introducing multi-threading, the more messed up it becomes. So like there has to be like some kind of stack issue here, that this thing is writing into the stack that has this thing, but how is that even possible? That is messed up. So we are, which one is it? I find that RemedyBG very often jumps to the place after the function call. So I don't think it's actually this one. I think it's probably this one. So now you see this is completely normal. And it looks also like around 200 megabytes. It's exactly 200 megabytes. Or well. I probably just set the size. 200 and an extra kilobyte or two. So at some point, this pointer address It's written over. There's not too many of these. Okay. I give up. This was having no issues until I introduced multi-threading. So like I don't see why it would not work right now. Still out of memory? Arena out of memory. Wait, I think I'm doing something stupid. You see what I'm doing here? I'm having my static arena and I'm allocating it using my arena allocator, which is doubling the size, which will always be larger than the size I allocated. Man. Oh, it really is this function call? Yeah, I mean, true. I can just have hacky fixes on top of hacky fixes. So the thing is that I have my arena. Here's what's happening. I have one arena and then I sub allocate arenas within that arena. So it's Matroska dolls all the way down. You know, I'm going to take you up on that. Not KB, MB. Yeah. Still out of memory. One gigabyte. So what is going on here? I think, well, actually, I'm not really thinking very much anymore. I think I'm going to have to cut the stream shortly. But yeah, this static size and scratch size, I'm calculating the total size. Let's do 400, 400, and then just add a buffer there. Ryan Fleury has an interesting article about how most code that is multi-threaded becomes hard to manage because of the philosophy behind it is single-threaded. Can't that be half the reason of my current pains? Definitely it could be, because I wrote it to be single-threaded, and then I tried to add multi-threaded things on top of it. And I am not an expert on multi-threading, so I did what I thought was logical. Oh, LMAO. I didn't clone the repo. I was just skimming the source on GitLab. State is the one struct that isn't typedef, so I missed it. It's actually a couple of them. So in definitions here, I have all these are not typedef, or they are typedef, but they are typedef in definitions. And the reason for that is just because I need to share thread task args with multiple things, but I can't include the source for it, the header, because the header for this is using all of the other things. So I can't include, like, if you see here, I'm including component here because I need it. But if I would go here and I need to include the thread task args, then I couldn't do that. So they need to be in here just as a definition to make the compiler happy, because there's no reason to do this except to make the compiler happy. The way I create the threads in main is confusing to you. Well, I think it's very straightforward. I create a mutex, or I create the mutex semaphores that I use later in the game. I check how many threads I can create, but it has to be 1 minus because I am on a thread right now. So that's pretty straightforward. Then I have some special tasks. So the special tasks right now, it's just draw. So the draw is alone in doing the drawing task, and all the other ones are doing, work for the game. And I have like some minimum amount of threads to run the game. Then I create this thread task. It's only one right now, so it's just an array of 1. And then for my count, which is 1, I add this services to boot. Now this, I should probably do like another mutex or something. The reason why I did this is because I want to wait for the threads to be created until I start going, like, proceeding into the game. And then I have, I'm assigning different things for these threads. So task thread game. Okay, so this is just an integer in the thread. So the thread state, right? It gets this task assigned, and in the game, all of the threads are assigned the same function, which is the thread run. And then depending on their task, here you get the graphics. Otherwise, it gets to do work for the game. So that's what that is. And then I do thread create, which is just a wrapper around create thread in Windows. And this is all very like standard code from their documentation, Win32. the last index of special tasks equal thread draw, but then the last task equals thread game. Like, that's only because I want to have the task count here to be accurate. I want this to be 1. And if it's not one of these special tasks, like you could imagine here, thread audio, thread networking, thread whatever. And then I have 4 special tasks. And then anything that is not one of those gets the game task. So I could do it better, but like I tend to write code that works before I clean it up. So once it's working the way I want, then I can make it nicer. Or I can, sometimes I'm just like throwing things into the main function. Like that's how I started. I just like wrote into main here, win main. And later when I got to the game part, I just wrote things into the game main.c. And as I developed the program, I started to like separate it so that now I have, you know, separate entity functions. But all of these things were just like in the main function at some point, at least in game.c. But because it's a work in progress, it's not a finished engine or anything. There's bound to be things that are not making sense, or that they're like, for example, in game here, I have push message and pop message. And that's doing essentially the same thing as my queue, but I'm using the queue for some things and the messages for some other things. And that's only because I like my queue better than this message stuff. Because the message is very limited in the memory. It only takes a pointer. While the other one, I have the entire state that I need to push. As a union here. So I can decide, I can just like copy the entire thing and not really have to worry about the memory safety or like allocating and deallocating. This is just like in an array. And because it's a union, I can rely on it being just fine. Yeah, sure. Did I switch on the thread task in thread run because I expect to reallocate some threads to other tasks when needed? No. Again, my philosophy is to write one thing that works. So I just wrote a thread run that grabbed the thread and OS or whatever, and then slept. And then I created all of my threads. And then I added the specific like special task to do graphics. So then I created this switch statement because they were all running on the same thread run function. And then I added the next game one. And you know, if it gets annoying to do it like this, like right now it's what, 50 lines of code, like minus the white space, maybe 60 lines of code. If this gets too like annoying, then I can just make 2 functions and then I set the function pointers in main. But until I get to the point where I'm sure that's what I want to do, like there's no point for me to rearrange it just to make it look nicer, because, you know, writing nice looking code that you're deleting anyway is pointless. So until I decide this is how I want it to work, I am not really bothered with how it looks like. The most important thing is that I have very verbose names for things so that I don't forget what this means. Because sometimes I see people, they're having, if I less than TSPC or something like this. And this is like thread special task counts or SPTC, right? And like this is meaningless. This means nothing unless you know exactly the definition, or you can right click and go to the definition. And maybe you say, well, this is too verbose. This is too specialized or something. It's too long. It goes off screen. Okay. Then when I get to the point that I like how it works, then I can start making simplifications. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Okay. It's getting pretty late here, and I don't really feel any closer to a solution than before. We added the sanitizer, and instead of running, we just crash immediately. Oh. No directory. So I think what happened is maybe it didn't build. Yeah. They need to be max 2 letters. Well, this is interesting. Like, what is this? This didn't happen before. Kernel PDB. Why would I have kernel PDB? I'm not building Windows. Huh? I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, you have LLVM bin on your path. Like, I guess I can add that. So instead of, maybe it's because I just literally copied this DLL in here. Oh, it's open. So I'm just going to add it to my system variables. Let's see if I don't leak anything. I don't know what I would have, but you can never be too safe. So just LLVM bin. Just here. Now, do I need to, I think I need to reboot Remedy for that to take effect. It was not found. It's getting worse and worse, guys. It's getting worse and worse. Environment, no. It's a headache because I'm juggling a mutex across threads with my custom allocator and OpenGL state. Well, maybe if I draw it out, it's easier to understand. So here's what I'm trying to do. I'm not sure this is what I'm actually doing, but it's what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense. I am having, this is my game state. There's only one copy. And over here, I have smaller mesh draw states. And what I'm trying to do is, on the first time around, I'm going through the entire game state and I'm copying the mesh draws to this struct while, well, I guess OpenGL is just waiting because there's nothing to do. Then I'm doing the same thing here while this one is set to most recent, right? So in threads, is it threads? No. Mesh draw game latest. Oh, nice. So this is set to mesh draw game latest while we are claiming this one and starting to draw into this array. So now OpenGL, which is over here with its own state, although this state technically is inside here. So OpenGL reads from here while we're drawing there, and it's reading, 8 times or 10 times, 12 times before the game finishes. And well, you just have to remember. Then later we start drawing to this and we set this one to be the latest. And what seems to be happening is that OpenGL is inside here. And at some point it starts reading, even though it's reading from the same index, because in the output here, I don't know if, no, there's nothing here anymore. In the output, it says, oh, I'm reading from index 0000000 all the 10 times that it's drawing while we're doing the updates. But for some reason, the data is different. So in here, in this state, I'm having, count equals 4,000. Because I'm drawing 4,000 things that are having a graphics state. But then the next time it's trying to draw, suddenly this count is down to 0. And then, so it's drawing nothing. But that's why it's flickering. And the only reason why I can see it's being 4,000, jumping from 4,000 to 0, even though it's reading from the same place, is if it's not actually the same place. It's reading from here or from there. And those are being managed by the game. And why is it doing that? I don't know, like something with the memory is wrong. It looks like it's crashing and my debugger is showing the full stack, dropping into kernel 32 stuff. It doesn't have debug symbols for. Might need to be configured for that. Well, honestly, I don't really know why this would be happening at all. So like what you're saying makes sense, but it doesn't tell me how to do anything about it. It's one of those programming days. Well, to solve one bug, I introduced 10 more. And then I start working on the first of those 10, and then I introduced 10 more. So I am not happy about that. Do I have to restart my computer to make the path update for RemedyBG? Is that actually what I have to do? Because I don't want to do that. Normally, I just need to reboot the command window. So like I can do my, oh, nah, it should be fine. I can do my path here. Huh? What is it? It should just be path. What? Why is it saying this? What is going on, guys? Why can I not print my path? And why is it saying system 32? Oh, because I need to do echo. I'm dumb. Okay. So yeah, normally you just open a new command window and then you get your updated path here. So yeah, now this is there. I build it. Open up RemedyBG fresh. Now I don't know if I can like verify in here. Maybe we add it here. What is it? Program, I don't know. Let's just copy this LLVM bin, not lib. Do I not need to wrap it in? Huh. Okay. Well, let's try that. No, it cannot find it. I am sad. Let's try disabling it. See if it even runs. Should run. It does run, but we are flickering. So the reason why it's doing all of these graphics reads here is because the time it takes for me to click close was 35 milliseconds, I guess. But clicking the X to close button halts the main thread. So that's why there's a bunch of extra here. But before I clicked, oh, interesting. And maybe this is before. Maybe it's because I have less objects and it's just running faster. I did enable. I did enable this, but I haven't actually verified that it's working. This is using OpenGL. And according to the documentation, it allows an application to specify a minimum periodicity of color buffer swaps measured in video frame periods. So video frame period here, I think, is how many, like the frame rate of your, what do you call it? Hold on. Yeah, so this should definitely just be like v-syncing as far as I understand it. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, trying to help me, even though things didn't really turn out the way I wanted. I'm gonna have to come back to this. But yeah, I'm out of time. It's a little bit sad, but you know, I will think really hard. A sanitized address doesn't get defined in Clang. It does in MSVC. All right. I think it's actually a Microsoft thing, not a Clang thing. Just Clang supports it. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you around.